In classrooms across the country, on Saturday mornings when the SAT is being given, something happens. And fear strikes in the heart of students everywhere when proctors announce, "Now turn to Section 5. Many of you may not know what Section 5 of the multiple choice on the SAT is, or if you're getting ready to take the SAT and you want to avoid that panic-filled moment, stay tuned because we're going to talk about what is the fifth section of the multiple choice on the SAT. If you're wondering who I am, my name's Brooke. I've been tutoring and teaching the SAT and the ACT for over 15 years. I've scored perfectly on the SAT as an adult and the ACT as an adult. I've also recently helped coach one of my private students to a perfect score on the SAT 1600. Woo, woo! If you are wondering how to get in on all the dirt of how to totally crush the SAT, join us, subscribe to this channel, first of all, and you can head to SupertutorTV.com to check out the best SAT prep course ever, where we have a full-fledged SAT prep course with kind of all of those magical tricks and insights, etc., on the exam that I've shared with my private students that are now available to all of you guys via the interweb. So definitely go check that out. If you want something totally free, check out our mailing list, SupertutorTV.com/subscribe. We will keep you in the know. We will send you updates when we have new videos or new information out that we think could help you guys out. So definitely plug in. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So you can find us there too at SupertutorTV. Cool. Let's get started. I'm going to go through four questions here, guys. What is it? Who gets it? Does it count? And should I make an effort on it? Okay, those are my 4 questions. I'm going to go through them. We're going to start with what is it? What is the experimental fifth section of the SAT? Well, it's a 20-minute section that allows for the inclusion of, quote, pre-test items on the exam that you're taking. Pre-test is a fancy word that the College Board uses, which means experimental questions. What experimental test items are is they're questions that the College Board hopes to include on future SAT exams. So they test them out on guinea pigs called you, students who are taking the official SAT on any given Saturday. And they also use the data that they collect from you guys trying out those test items to ensure that the questions are fair, and above all, to try to figure out what's hard and what's easy, and is this test of a comparable sort of level to the test that you're taking, so that they can kind of figure out the scoring grid, right? So that's kind of the intention of these experimental sections. Basically what you get is one of the regular 4 types of material. You're either going to get reading, writing and language, math no calculator, or math calculator. And then you're going to take a section of that in that 20-minute period. So now let's talk about who gets this test. Who gets it? Right now, pretty much everybody. As of March 2019, the College Board is now giving experimental test items to everyone who takes the test pretty much on national test dates, as far as I can see, or as far as reporting and students, typing on Reddit have mentioned. It used to be before March of 2019 that only students who were not taking the optional essay portion would get experimental questions. But maybe the College Board figured out that that wasn't the best sample, because generally the highest achieving students take the essay, because competitive universities are more likely to require the essay. And so you probably have like a cut of the population that isn't a randomized pool of people. Now, that being said, there are some test takers who don't have it, and it is possible that on any given day that you take the exam that your particular test center will not have experimental questions. It's possible. If you have additional time, or if you have accommodations, chances are you probably won't get a fifth section. Who's to say what the College Board is ever going to do? Because we have no idea, and it's like, it's not like they do press releases to tell us when they're deciding to change their policies or anything, because they don't really do that. But that's what we know about who's getting the fifth section. So at this point, I think it's good for everybody to kind of know what it is and be prepared and have some understanding of it. So let's now talk about the third item that I want to get to, which is, does it count? I know this is the most common question that I get with students when it comes to the fifth section, and I know there's a lot of sort of doublespeak around this issue. Of course, the College Board doesn't want you to think that this fifth section doesn't count, because they want you to actually make an effort on it. And if they tell everybody it doesn't count, they're going to get a bunch of blank sections, and then they're not going to be able to reap the data they need in order to try to figure out whether future test question items are similar in difficulty to the question items that you have on your exam. So as a result, their official message to proctors and guidance counselors states that, quote, both pretest and operational items may be on any section of the exam. So when there's a fifth section, the official policy of the College Board is that they are allowed to make the fifth section count. And for that reason, you may have had proctors tell you, oh, the fifth section counts. Now, you might have also had proctors tell you, oh, it doesn't really count. It's an experimental section. And it's just created a lot of mixed messaging and a lot of confusion. And leave it to the College Board to try to confuse you. So here's the deal. I know they've said that it could count, but let's talk about how elaborate it would be if the College Board actually was making these items count. First of all, the only section where they could make a few of the items count and the other items not count would be the math sections, because they're the only place where you can swap out one question here or one question there and then swap back in something else, right? When it comes to the reading and the writing and language, if there were a swap, they'd have to basically swap out, make the entire experimental section count, and then basically make a passage randomly in your reading test or in your writing test not count. But there's some problems with that model, I think. And this is why I think they're not actually swapping out items like this, because it's completely unfair, okay? So first of all, the timing of these sections is different from actual exam sections. For example, in the reading passage, you have 20 minutes to complete one passage. And I don't know how many questions are on that passage. It might be a few more questions than sometimes you have on a regular reading passage. But in any case, on the regular SAT section for the reading, you have an average of 13 minutes per passage. So obviously 20 minutes is way more time. It's like time and a half. It's like gangbusters, awesome extra time. And if any of you have ever done a reading passage on the SAT, you probably know that the more time you have, the easier it becomes. It's like way easier to do a reading section when you have more time. So it's kind of totally unfair if anybody who happens to get a swap and gets the reading as their experimental section basically gets 7 bonus minutes on a passage that counts. That's like super unfair, and that would totally skew their SAT scores, and then those kids are going to get like 20 extra points or 30 extra points. I know plenty of students who would get 20 or 30 extra points in their SAT if they only had 7 more minutes on a really hard passage. So that's one thing that seems like patently unfair. The other thing about the reading section is because it's so time sensitive, like if you swap a different passage in, that passage is going to be a different difficulty level for that particular student than the one that you swapped into the experimental section. You see where I'm going here. My point is that it's not the same test. And if you're not giving the same test to people and you're experimenting with items that you don't even know if they're hard or not yet, you're not going to be able to gauge what that student's score should be on this SAT. And it's like not fair. Same deal with the writing section. In the writing section, I think in the experimental section, you have about 17 questions and you have 20 minutes to do them. If this were timed according to the same pacing as the actual exam, you would have less than 14 minutes to do 17 questions. So you can see you get like bonus 6 minutes there. It doesn't make sense. And it certainly wouldn't be fair if then you're counting the things in this time and a half kind of environment. That doesn't make any sense to me. The second reason that I think it would be really unfair if the College Board counted this, and why I think they're probably not counting it, is because there is such widespread confusion, and because it looks like they're not counting it, there are proctors out there who tell you it doesn't count, because proctors don't think it counts. And so if they're going to start counting it, they need to be more transparent about what is actually going on and how this whole system works, so that we know how we're being tested and when we're being tested. In any case, my read on the story is the chances are this fifth section isn't going to count. But that doesn't mean that you should ignore it or you should flake out on it. So should you make an effort on it? This is the last question I'm going to answer today. Should you make an effort on it? I'm going to say yes for 3 reasons. Okay, there's 3 reasons why I think you should actually make an effort on this section. 1, we're not sure if the College Board is using this to flag cheaters. So if you're anticipating a score increase from a previous SAT test, especially one into the hundreds of points, you might want to be careful about not doing this section, because it could flag you as a potential cheater, because if you get all the stuff right on this other section and that's a recycled test or something like that, and you think, oh, you saw the recycled test or whatever, you see where I'm going. So if you're accused of cheating, it's going to look really bad if you completely bomb this. That's number 1. Number 2, when you do that section, you're helping the College Board understand future questions and know whether they're hard or not. If you purposefully kind of meander through it and just kind of like do it very, I don't really care about this, you're giving the College Board bad data. And when you give them bad data, that disadvantages you, because your test is graded on a particular scale. And then that test that you took is going to look harder than it is. And when it looks harder than it is, it's going to inflate the scores of people who are testing after you and retaking the test with that exam. And the College Board is just basically like creating a less fair test for everyone. So that's not good. I don't like that idea. and probably a less fair test in a way that could harm you because you're going to be competing against people who then took this test that was hard and it wasn't hard. Now, I know you're only one drop in the bucket, but if all those drops in the bucket do what you're doing, you get what I'm saying. And then the third reason why I think you should make an effort on it is that we can't necessarily trust the College Board to always do things the same way. And though so far I think it really hasn't counted, there could be one Saturday morning where everyone wakes up and the College Board decides to have it count, or they decide to swap things around, even though, as I explained earlier, it would be patently unfair because students would be getting time and a half on that section and not time and a half on the earlier section. Blah. Exactly. But in any case, my point is, you never know when the College Board is going to launch an experiment on you and start to count things that they didn't count before, and so it's probably best to just do it. Chances are it's not going to count. Chances are it's nothing you have to really stress about or worry about. I know you guys are going to be exhausted and it's the end of the test and all that good stuff, but it's not something to freak out about. That's my read on the story. I hope you guys have found this informative and you now know what the 5th multiple choice section of the SAT is. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already, and stay tuned because we will be coming out with more SAT videos soon. And if you're taking the test in October, Godspeed, good luck, watch more of our videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.